So it's probably relevant for all of you to know that the Suicide Squad is one of those comic book properties I don't actually know that much about beyond the basic premise. Based on the off chance you don't know the basic premise, there's this government official named Amanda Waller who has the brilliant idea to complete shady missions by forcing convicts with a
very particular set of skills
to work for her in exchange for less time behind bars.
Oh, great. Only 87 more suicide missions to go. Cheers, Waller.
So this is a rare DCAMU video where I am going in with no comic book expectations. In fact, the only expectation I have of this movie is that it be better than this one. And all these ones. So we start off on what else? A suicide mission. Oh hello Black Manta, are we actually going to learn anything about you this time?
Don't bother.
The team consists of Floyd Lawton aka Deadshot, Count Vertigo, don't get too attached, and these clowns. Again, don't get too attached. I have to say, I really appreciate how unapologetically yet appropriately brutal this is. Smoking kills, kids. It seems like they've achieved their objective, but of course there's a double cross. And instead of just killing the last teammate alive, Count Vertigo decides to go full Bond villain.
I say we let the train run him over.
And surprise, surprise, it was actually a triple cross and the big boss lady's been listening in the whole time.
Waller, listen to me. I beg you.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention she puts bombs in their heads to stop them from double-crossing her. You can see a theme going through this team, can't you? And I have to say, this scene is amazing. Just the way it keeps building and she's begging for her life and the timer's ticking down and... Even the best of the DCAMU have been pretty filmically bland thus far. This gave us all we need to know about anyone who sets foot on this team in such little time. It's brilliant. Okay, Suicide Squad. I'm in. You got me. Back in jail, Floyd receives an unopened letter from his daughter and is pulled out of his mood by Captain Boomerang. Not that they're friends or anything, this is the Suicide Squad we're talking about. No, Boomerang most likely wants to alleviate his own boredom by annoying the hell out of his neighbour. And I love how instead of folding paper airplanes, he folds paper boomerangs. That's actually kind of adorable. Then Teacher comes in to break up their little tussle and sends them on another suicide mission. This team consists of Deadshot, Boomerang, Harley Quinn, Bronze Tiger, Killer Frost, who can only be described as a stroppy teenager with ice powers, and what's the reptile version of a furry? We see the squad getting bombs implanted in their heads, and this is a good indicator to people who aren't familiar with the Suicide Squad that the woman on the side of law and order is just as bad as the convict she's using, and in some cases they're even better people than she is. But remember, better doesn't mean good. Deadshot is put in charge of the mission, much to the ire of Bronze Tiger, and we see the beginnings of some tension between these two. Because Bronze Tiger is an ex-CIA agent who made a vow never to kill an innocent person, whereas Floyd is a hitman who will kill most people for the right price. So the squad begin their mission, and spend plenty of time bonding, as you can see. It's good that it shows you this bullshit about team being family and bonds making you better people is nowhere to be seen in this movie. They are colleagues at best. At worst, they are people who don't like each other, who are forced to be together and perform dangerous missions because the alternative is death. This scene shows us this, with no dialogue. I also love how Bronze Tiger is always in the same position. And that got me thinking about some superheroes like Black Panther, Black Manta, Bronze Tiger. I feel like there's a theme here I might be missing. Meanwhile, X-23 and Giganta? I'll work out who they are, but I don't expect to care. Kidnap Professor Pig for some unknown reason. Meanwhile, one of Waller's scientists delivers information to... Oh hey, it's Thong! So it soon becomes clear that whatever Amanda Waller has the Suicide Squad chasing, she's not the only one who wants it. She sends the squad to find a man named Maxim who is an...
entertainer.
And this scene is just pure perfection and showcases the film's comedy brilliantly.
Psychotics have needs, you know. We have needs.
But before things can start getting a little too heated, Thawne, Banshee and Blockbuster break in and try to kidnap Maxim before the squad can get to him. And the ladies at the club are apparently into it. So naturally a fight breaks out as everyone tries to grab the stripper, and I'm just going to pause it here because I'm immature. So they ultimately get away, but they are pursued by Thawne, who is having trouble catching them, which is strange because, as Deadshot says,
"You should have broken into this jalopy and killed us all by now."
Building up the mystery of exactly what it is everyone's chasing and why they want it so much. In the next scene, we find out that it is a literal get-out-of-hell free card. I know it sounds ridiculous if you're not into these kind of stories, and it is, but this simple object gives the writers the freedom to explore so many interesting themes. But for now, I'll just tell you that this guy used to be Dr. Fate. I'm not kidding. For any of you who don't know who Dr. Fate is, he is the combination of a powerful cosmic being living inside a helmet and whomever puts on the helmet. Nabu, the spirit of the helmet, sometimes gets to choose whose body he takes for a spin, and he chooses this guy. I can't speak as to why, because Dr. Fate's not a character I'm all that familiar with. The only thing I really know about him is that at some point in the future he's killed by John Constantine, because of course John Constantine kills Fate.
Oh, I put that down, love, before it puts you down.
Anyway, back to Hell to Pay. Waller, in her desperation not to end up in hell after she dies from cancer, agrees to increase the time the squad gets off their sentences.
You know what that means for you. You're out.
We also find out that these two, okay, it's Vandal Savage's daughter and her girlfriend, but I feel like it's such a waste of energy even remembering who they are. And I'll explain this mostly in the conclusion, but for now we find out that they broke into Dr. Fate's lair and grabbed the card, causing Nabu to kick Maxim to the curb. Oh, wise and powerful Lord of Order, you sure know how to pick 'em, don't you? And we have an obligatory scene showing how much these two love each other, which of course means one of them's going to die pretty soon. The Suicide Squad break in and grab the card, but before they can escape, Daddy Savage comes in and does this.
The woman is expendable.
His daughter is not very happy, but all I have to say to that is, you cliched, naive little waste of a character. Your dad is 50,000 years old. Can you guess how many children he's had? Do you think he remembers any of their names? You really, really did not see this coming. And if you were a teenager, which you look like, but from this I'm assuming you're not, I could excuse this, but you're not. You're a grown-ass woman who is obviously supposed to be very skilled and intelligent, and you didn't see this coming. And don't give me the, oh, but it's my dad argument. Once again, your dad is a 50,000-year-old fucking caveman. He has had hundreds of thousands of children. You would have to be plain stupid to think that you were anything special to him. Because it doesn't look like he makes much of a secret of his feelings either. And the story about a young woman losing the woman she loves at the hands of her father and coming to terms with the fact that her father is a cold, heartless, immortal being who doesn't care about her could have been a pretty great storyline in its own movie. But I will get to why it comes across as a cliched waste of time in Suicide Squad later. Throughout this entire movie, Deadshot's main conflict has been his daughter, and I feel comfortable in saying that that is one of his main character drives. His job conflicting with his want to be a good father. And that has been done. It's been done a lot, but it's actually done really well here. This seems to be a really good blend of a man who is not a good person, but has enough of a heart and a conscience to raise a decent kid and not want her to turn out like him, while still not feeling that much guilt about being who he is beyond what it does to his daughter. So I can't really articulate what they did differently here that took this overdone idea and made it good, but it was. So anyway, he goes to her school to talk to her and finds out she goes to drug dens. He tries to track her down and thinks he sees her, but he is stopped by Bronze Tiger before he can pursue her. Okay, now you are just poking the fangirls with these two.
Not even if I said please?
And these kind of moral lectures can come across as annoying and sanctimonious, but I don't know if it's the character, the voice acting, the writing, or just a combination of all three, but Bronze Tiger just comes across as so earnest here. Just genuinely earnest, but also at the same time unsure of himself. So when he's talking about how he lost a loved one, and how that set him on a dark path, and is scolding Floyd for choosing a dark path and giving up on his loved one because of it, it does feel true. And at the same time, just comes across as two human men who have very different ideals, connecting on a human level, despite actively not liking each other. Deadshot gets demoted for leaving Harley in charge, which is fair enough, I think. And Tiger is made the team leader. They decide to regroup at a gas station where they lose Killer Frost, who is convinced into joining Thawne as he gets the bomb out of her head. They try to retrieve Frost, and Bronze Tiger is severely injured, putting Deadshot back in the driver's seat. Scandal Savage tells the squad where to find her daddy, her motivations for doing so being obvious. We find out why Professor Pig was necessary, as Savage wanted him to implant the card into his chest, so that if anyone ever tried to remove it, he would die instantly. Thawne shows up and, much like he did with Killer Frost, removes the card without harming Savage. And we find out that this is the same version of this character whom Thomas Wayne shot in the Flashpoint movie. And don't ask me about the time travel, I don't have enough brain cells. I am more than happy to just accept that he's here. And in true vintage Suicide Squad fashion, Frost double-crosses Thawne to try to take the card, Boomerang double-crosses the squad to try and take the card, and the only reason Harley isn't trying to take it is because she's crazy enough to think she's already going to heaven. Thawne frees himself and ends up in a battle with a still severely wounded Bronze Tiger, and even though I am all for fast-paced, exciting action scenes of just two powerful people beating the crap out of each other, this slow, desperate exchange of blows between survival and principle was incredibly satisfying, which leads to a genuinely touching but still appropriate ending where Deadshot, out of simple respect and kindness, gives the card to the dying man who deserves it the most. And this act of selflessness feels earned, instead of
shoot that woman right now!
She ain't do shit to me.
I'll deal with you in a minute. Floyd's kindness is rewarded as the card itself stays on the mortal plane, and he gets the satisfaction of handing the now useless item to this despicable woman.
It feels cold.
It's a cold world.
She does, however, keep her promise, and he is a free man, able to mend his relationship with his daughter. So, wow. That was mostly brilliant. So I guess I'll start with the bad so we can end on a high note. Scandal Savage and insert her name here. That whole subplot with them and Professor Pig could have been cut. I know Pig was needed to sew the card into Vandal's chest, but he has infinite resources. As a viewer, I didn't need a known character to do this. I would have been more than happy to accept that he had a doctor in his employ who could do that. And her stealing the card from Dr. Fate and tattling on him to the squad could have been done in 100 other ways. And all the lovey-dovey stuff, okay, it's not as bad as Dick and Corey, and maybe I'm just a small-hearted cynic, but we get it. You're so in love. Shame I don't know either of you enough to care. There are already so many characters here. They could have been completely cut out of this movie and it would be so much less bloated. And maybe we would have actually gotten to know one of the more likeable characters better. At least Boomerang and Harley were funny, the snake guy looked interesting, and Frost was important to the plot. I hate it when writers try to use cheap tactics to get the audience to care. Oh look, here's two people in love, that means there's something to like about them. No. But she lost the woman she loves. Don't you care? No. I don't know these characters. If this happened to Deadshot or Bronze Tiger, sure I'd care, because you actually put effort into making them interesting characters and likeable ones at that. But can you name one likeable trait of this woman? And for that matter, can you name any trait of this woman beyond hot body? And if that's enough to get you to care, good for you. But for me, it is just lazy and insulting. And the reason I hate it this much is because we already had characters you could have given this time to. Okay, now that that's over, other than the blindingly irritating flaw I just pointed out, it is pretty brilliant all round. It was balanced quite well if you accept that in an ensemble piece, some people are going to get more attention than others, and not everyone is going to get an emotional journey. But for the most part, they managed to give every character a reason for being there and make them entertaining as well. It has a good story, incredible comedy, great characters, good pacing, and hallelujah! After so many insultingly childish moral messages, we actually get a movie that has some interesting themes to explore. I like the clever little connection to Flashpoint because it rewards viewers who remain with the franchise without alienating ones who don't. And for a story about people chasing an object, it was very well done because the movie takes time to establish the desperation of the people chasing it and makes you believe it is something desperate people would be chasing, rather than, say, a shiny rock that means nothing to any of them personally. This card as a plot device also brings up some interesting questions around spirituality, as none of the characters really know for sure if it works, but they are still willing to go through all the trouble for it because it calms their fears and gives them hope. And still there are some people who want the card but don't want to use it because they genuinely believe it won't work and there is nothing beyond this life. All very deep philosophical and psychological questions. I did not expect this from a Suicide Squad movie, but then again my expectations were set very low with the first one. Deadshot and Bronze Tiger are two characters I have little interest in, but this movie got me to care about them, and their mutual respect felt very appropriate, so when coupled with Floyd's internal conflict, I wasn't rolling my eyes when a villain decided to do something selfless and potentially risk not seeing his daughter for 10 years to give salvation to a man he felt deserved it. Not
Kill Harley Quinn. Do it for your freedom and your kid.
Oh, she did.
Yeah. Why isn't she dead? Waller just offered you your little girl on a silver platter and you threw it away for what? There was nothing that happened to you either externally or internally that would get you to so easily throw away your freaking daughter for nothing. Why?
I lost one family, I ain't gonna lose another one!
Writers, you think you earned family in that movie? You think that this is in any way what a property called The Suicide Squad is about. I don't know all that much about these comics, but I know it's not that. It's the fucking Suicide Squad. A bunch of selfish people who are still human beings, some of whom are capable of good, though the level varies wildly. This is a chance to explore all the shades of grey that comes with morality, and that is what the best superhero properties do. Why couldn't this premise have been the movie that got all the money and attention? And after so much bland, childish New 52 righteousness, some of which is so far from reality it's not funny, we have moral complexity. Thank you. Now, if you have been watching this series from the beginning, you will know that I do not like this version of Superman. But he has so far been an ensemble player, and a fairly small one at that. So let's see how I cope with the big blue brooding Boy Scout dropout having his very own movie.